the reason why I wanted to bring Allie on is because I had talked about the best job ever previously on the show. I can tell you feel the same way. So
Yeah.
yeah, uh, I just want to hear what you thought about working at the Best Western Hotel. Just kind of summed up.
Well, I don't know how long you were there after I had left. I know I was there for a couple months before you had joined.
Hmm.
And in the whole time that I was there, it was really good as long as you were kissing ass to the manager. Like,
Yeah.
her ass, you were on her good side and she loved you. You could do no wrong.
Hmm.
But the moment you said anything to contradict her or be against how she wanted things to be,
Hmm.
it was an issue.
Yeah.
So on the register with checking people in, I had found some shortcuts and made it easier for us at the front.
Hmm.
And she flipped out on me that I was doing everything wrong.
Really.
Even though what she showed me was just a longer process of getting done what I had already done.
Hmm.
So that's just it was. And then another thing with her was that she liked to talk shit about all of the employees behind their backs to other employees.
Oh yeah.
But then to your face, she would tell you how you're doing such a great job.
Hmm. I remember there was one time you were out one day and it was like one of my last days there, I'm pretty sure. There was like me and like two other people and they had ordered Chipotle and the person that you're talking about was complaining about how there was ice cream left in the fridge and how you left it there and that it's like it's taking up too much space and this and that and yeah, I know what you mean.
My little cup that I would always get,
Yeah.
even though her other manager would get three of them a day.
Oh yeah, yeah. Cal, this my trainer would go to Dairy Queen like 3 times a day and get a Blizzard.
Or McDonald's.
Yeah.
You gotta, you gotta get through that workday.
Mm-hmm.
It
Definitely.
was just not all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So how long did you two work together then?
Oh, 2 months
Long, just
max.
Not very long. Okay.
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't stay there very long. My last straw was my son. He has a lot of asthma issues, and
Hmm.
he ended up in the hospital with a really bad asthma attack. And at the time, I was a single mom. My kid's father passed away when I was pregnant with my youngest.
Okay.
So I'm the only parent that can be there with him. And the other manager of the housekeeping had texted me flipping out on me because I had called out of work the next day. And I'm like, what do you expect me to do? My kid's in the freaking hospital.
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
and after that, I was like, you know what? I'm done. I was like, my kids come first. And at the end of the day, that's how it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My last straw was far less I guess important than that. She they wouldn't let me have vacation time for my dad's wedding, so like that's when I quit. I put in my 2 weeks, like somewhat before I left, and then yeah, that was that. I just didn't come back, so I'm
Yeah.
glad I didn't. That was first and worst job ever for me.
Yeah. That it was something else. I had already put in my 2 weeks before this situation had happened with my son
Hmm.
because I had found a job working with special needs kids, which is where my specialty is for like what I'm going to school for. And whenever I left her my resignation letter, she didn't talk to me for 3 days. Not one word whatsoever.
Hmm.
And it was finally when I had to go to her and be like, "Did you get my letter?" And she was like, "Yep, I don't want to talk about it." I'm like, as long as you got it.
Hmm. Yeah. I don't remember his name, but Mr. Clean, the maintenance guy. After I told him that I wouldn't be working with him anymore, because like the first hour of the day or whatever, I would be doing stuff with him. And after I told him like, no, I can't survive in this heat. I just moved here. I ain't doing it. he didn't speak for me. He didn't speak to me for the entire time left that I was there. He just like kind of glared at me sometimes, and that was it.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I remember I used to get like the Mr. Clean little sponges, and I
Hmm.
would cut out the Mr. Clean emblem, and I would tape it to his name tag before he'd come into work.
Really?
His name tag was a Mr. Clean
Uh-huh.
picture.
Nice.
Did he look like Mr. Clean?
Oh yeah.
Hmm.
Bald head, white jumpsuit.
Yep. Blue our uniform, but he had the bald head, and I used to
Okay.
walk up rag and act like I was gonna shine it for him. He always laughed. He had fun with it, so I was like, okay, I'm good.
Hmm.
Just don't tell him it's too hot outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that job was a mess. And like when I was doing that stuff for him in the morning, he would show me how to like clean the pool. And when he was first showing me, he's like, "Yeah, I've been like waiting for someone like you to come in so that the so that the women in the front won't do it because they always mess it up." And I'm like, "Whatever you say, man. All right."
I was told never to mess with the pool, so I never did.
Yeah.
So Riley has told me some horrifying experiences working there. Do you have any you'd care to share with us? Like, what is the worst thing you saw while working there?
I mean, I had to chase out a couple of drug users that would be sitting on the stairs,
Mhm.
just out in the middle of the open, just shooting up right there.
Really?
Yeah. We had some homeless people that would sleep under the stairs. I think the worst thing that I had to see would have to be when we had the one family that came in with like 3 or 4 dogs, and they weren't supposed to have the dogs in there. So when we found out and went to kick them out of the room, they completely trashed it. And by the time we got in there, we had to close that room out for, I think it was like a month almost, wasn't it?
It was closed when I left. It was closed for a while.
It was still closed
Still
when you
closed.
left.
Yeah, I
So
think so.
out quite a while. I mean, there was feces and urine all over, and then they just threw trash and food, and it was terrible.
And it smelled like pot.
Yeah.
I remember that very distinctly. Yeah, that room was a mess. It's funny that you mentioned throwing out homeless people because I have showed pictures on here before of like suitcases and different belongings that people have had that were left under those stairs, and that I had to
Yep.
throw away in the dumpsters. I never knew who had them, but that might just be that. You may
Yep.
have answered my question.
I mean, it was trippy, like, and it was scary because we would have at the front desk when you were working the night shift or even the overnight shift, you had to do rounds around the hotel.
Hmm.
It was an open hotel. It wasn't enclosed or anything like that. And in the area that it was a sketchy part of Mesa.
Yeah.
So some of the things that like you would hear or see going on, you're like, all right, I'm going back in. I didn't see anything.
Hmm.
But there was actually one time, I can't remember. I had worked a closing shift and then I'd worked the opening shift the next morning. And I had just got to work for the opening shift. And I had remembered checking someone out and feeling my phone going off like over and over and over and over and over through the whole time I was working with that customer. So as soon as they walked out, I went to the back, like by the office, and I looked at my phone. Come to find out, someone had called my grandma at like 4 in the morning
Hmm.
with a female in the background screaming, help me, help me. They kidnapped me. And they told my grandma that they had kidnapped me by name. And like they were trying to get like a ransom in this whole situation. And it wasn't until my godmother had taken the phone and was on the phone saying, it's me, it's me. And I kept saying, Grandma. And that's what, like, because I call her Nina. So when she was like, that's kind of what clicked in my head of like, this isn't the right person. But that was a trippy experience. Like to think that somehow, I don't know if they knew I was working the job I was working or if it was like just a random thing. But the fact that I had worked a closing shift that night and then been at work that morning, my family was like flipping out that I had saw something happen the night before and had got grabbed while I was at work or leaving work or something like that.
I don't know what to say
Yeah.
to that.
That's terrifying. Yeah. Wow.
Like that was a trippy experience to like not go through but go through at the same time, you know?
hmm
Yeah. Wow.
That's just
Especially
nuts.
in the hotel industry because you hear so much about hotels and trafficking and that kind of stuff going on in that.
hmm That was like the first thing that told me, like, yeah, if you see some like little kids that look out of place, just keep both eyes open.
And vicious, like that was a big thing that they trained us on whenever working at the hotel was trafficking.
hmm
Hmm.
Especially with where we were, like we did get some people that it was kind of like you're giving them the side eye, like, are you or are you not?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, I didn't have any experiences like that where I worked. I had just I worked in a senior center. Worked the night shift, and I saw some terrible things, but nothing like that. Terrible in a different way.
Working at the hotel, a trippy experience.
Mm. Yeah, I can't imagine. Just I feel like you would always, especially, did you work
I
night
worked
shift? Both, yeah. I feel like in that industry you always have to be watching your back, and I feel like it's something you can't do long term. Like I feel like you would be too messed up in the head doing it for so long.
Well, even whenever I was working, I had a lot of guests that would be checking in and they would try and tell me, oh, come to the hotel room whenever you're off of work, or what's your number? Let's go do something when you get off of work. Or I actually ran into one guest at the bar one time.
Hmm.
And I was like trying to duck and hide, but he was like almost 7 foot tall
Wow.
and he saw me through the crowd and like walked right over to me and I was like, crap.
hmm
Wow.
And then he visited another time and went to that same bar and was wanting me to meet him at the bar and I'm like, no, I gotta get home, I got stuff to do. And the next morning he had came back to the front and told me about how he had got kicked out of the bar for getting in some big bar fight or something at that night.
hmm
So definitely meet some interesting people working at a hotel. That's one thing I definitely learned.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Is that the one that stands out to you then for a more, I don't know, interesting individual that you've, I guess, met at a hotel? Because the one that comes to mind, and it's it's the lady who trained me. I'm not gonna say her name, but she told me a little too much sometimes, especially on our last days working together, because it was just me and her doing rooms on my last day. So I effectively spent like the whole day learning about her life story and uh, her family who's in prison, and her other family hates her, and all this stuff, and just
Yeah.
telling me way too much. And then one day, actually, after I had quit the job, I was driving from where I was living at the time, and I was going toward the hotel, and I was like, just like stopped like in the street in traffic, and then I can see her driving by, like in the opposite direction, and she is just screaming at the top of her lungs. Her face is bright red, and the two people in the back of the car are like looking at each other, not knowing what to say, and the drive off. That's the last I ever saw her.
Lord.
Yeah.
She definitely was a very open and interesting person.
Mm-hmm. She also claimed that one of the guy housekeepers that left tried to get in bed with her at some point. I have no idea if that's true, but that's what she told me. She's like, yeah, before he left, he was trying to like hit on me and all this stuff, and yeah, but I I never trusted anything that she really said, to be honest, because even though she was my trainer, I used these fingers for a purpose because I was barely trained by her. I was trained by the guy that I'm talking about, actually, mostly. So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how truthful that is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can say that most of the employees that we got while I was there was like around our age, being about half of her age.
Yeah.
So as far as the truth to that, I don't know. Not that I ever heard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. That just seems like such a something I don't feel like you could do it for a long amount of time and be right in the head after like looking over your shoulder for that long.
No.
No.
Because my one of my good friends growing up, I haven't talked to him in quite a while, but he also worked at a hotel a few years back, and he would tell me stories, and he'd be like, "Yep, had to call the cops, had to, there was a drug bust the other night. Oh, a guy pulled a gun on me the other night. This guy had a knife, and it was just like story after story. And I'm just like, how do you go to work every night and just expect? Because that's what he said. He's like, I just expect it because we live in a pretty or where the hotel is rather is a pretty bad part of town. And yeah, I just like, how do you do that every night and just wonder what is going to happen the next night? And you have
Yeah.
to go in, you have to go kick people out that are breaking the rules and smoking and almost burn the place down. And, just every night it's another thing.
We had one customer, their church leader. There was some bad situation going on at home. They were a young couple, and their church leader had helped them with getting a hotel room for a couple of nights to kind of figure things out and see where they were going from there.
Mm-hmm.
And when they left, the entire room reeked like marijuana. Like it was so strong. And so when I can't remember if it was a pastor or a preacher or what it was, but when he called back to ask why he had these additional charges for the smoke, having to smoke the room and get that smell out,
Mm-hmm.
we had to explain to him, like, these people, it smells like pot in here. Like, we have to get the smell out. And he's like, no, that can't be right. And I'm like, it is. I don't know what else to tell you. We've had like 4 people go and check it.
Yeah.